We are joined by Senator Ben Cardin. Wanted to start with this. What is the latest on gun reform legislation at the national level?
Well, we have important bills pending before the United States Senate that would restrict the use and ownership of assault weapons, military-style weapons, and these large capacity magazines from being available to the public, completing the background checks before you can sell a firearm, and closing the loopholes in the background checks. These are all common sense bills that are pending. We have a bipartisan group working, trying to get this done. We've got to move forward. Inaction is not an option. We really need to move forward. The United States is an outlier in gun violence among the industrial nations of the world, and we've got to take steps to keep our children safe and keep our communities safe.
How about on the state level?
The state's done a very good job. We passed reasonable gun safety legislation. We banned assault weapons, military-style weapons. We have a 21-year-old, 18 to 21, cannot purchase guns. We have no more than one gun you can purchase over 30 days. We have background checks. Maryland has done the right thing. But the challenge is that we need national legislation because individuals can take a firearm over state lines. We know gun violence in Maryland is way too high. So we need national laws.
We're with Representative John Sarbanes. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. First question I wanted to ask you is, what message do you have for communities that have been affected by some of these acts of violence that we have seen recently?
To the communities that have suffered, I mean, our message is we're going to do everything we can to ease their pain, reach out in every possible way. I mean, there's a lot of obviously counselors and social workers and others in the community broadly reaching out to these communities that have hit so hard. But we also have to send the message that we're going to work as hard as we can to try to address this broader issue of gun violence in America so that in the future we have less of these incidents occurring.
What can individual citizens do to protect themselves and also to protect their children?
I think that it makes sense for communities, particularly around their schools, to think about, what are the measures that can be taken in a very collaborative way, where it's schools working with communities, with parents, with teachers, with local law enforcement to make sure that the eyes and ears are there to try to combat these things when they're on the horizon. But I also think that we need to take some common sense measures nationally to address gun violence in this country. And there are things that we can do. Sometimes people say, well, you can't flip a switch and fix this problem. I agree with that. It's very complicated.
Outside some of the things that you've outlined already, are there any other things that can be done to prevent another big tragedy from taking place like we've already seen in Buffalo and Uvalde recently?
Again, raising awareness generally, having that collaboration between law enforcement, local communities to sort of have their radar up generally, intervening where we see individuals who are beginning to separate themselves from their peer groups, from the community, and we know that an intervention there early on could maybe get them back on the right path. That's very important. And Republicans and Democrats are very committed to additional resources for mental health services across the country. The president has talked about that. We know that a lot of people are under a lot of stress in this country, so we have to respond to that. But again, let's also put in place some very basic common sense measures to address gun violence. And these are things that are supported by broad majorities of Americans of all political parties. And I think that's something we ought to strive for, certainly at the national level and in every state if we can.
Congressman, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.